splendid evening it is to you viewers. Welcome to Equity News on EquityAxis, your business and economic insights in Zimbabwe and beyond. I'm Ibn Mabunda. Let's get started. African Cornfields has reported that it's under increasing international pressure to pull out of Zimbabwe. The owner, Mr. Zunaid Monti, says that global negativity about Zimbabwe and the failing economy are affecting operations of African Cornfields in Kwekwe, where the Monti Group has invested more than 250 million United States dollars. Of course, issues of interest there would involve the high levels of inflation, which came in at over 200% in the month of August, as well as a declining or weakening exchange rate, which has shared more than 300% since the launch of the interbank market system in February of 2019. Other pressures, of course, include electricity shortages, among other concerns that are playing out in this harsh macroeconomic setup. The Zimbabwe Stock Exchange has lifted the suspension of FALCON Gold, which earlier applied for voluntary suspension after failing to publish their financial statements for the period ended 30 September 2018. There have been concerns there with reporting as well as other operational issues, while the entity is also in need of a recapitalization. And now it's apparent that there will be that, of course, that suspension has been lifted, so we can expect to see progress where that particular entity is concerned. PPC has appointed Mr. Roland van Wergen, a former Lafarge Holdings executive, as its new CEO effective from the 1st of October 2019. PPC is the major player in the local cement arena with more than a 70% market share in that particular market, Lafarge holding a minority in that very same field. Zimbabwe is going to hold yet another diamond auction before the end of the year to sell at least 500,000 carats of diamond, in line with efforts to clear the current stockpiles of the precious mineral. Diamond is one of Zimbabwe's significant forex earner, with potential to increase basing on what has been produced before. Zimbabwe has a history of having benefited from alluvial deposits in Marange diamond fields, but now they've since been out of numbers, and now Zimbabwe has to dig deep to actually access these diamonds. Efforts are in place to try and bring in equipment that can unearth these diamond deposits. Beyond our borders, Kenya's traffic jams are said to have cost the economy over $1 billion. This is according to a most recent report released by the Nairobi Metropolitan Area Transport Authority. Now, this concludes our evening news bulletin. Up next is a look at the news in News Review. Don't go anywhere.
Climbing to the top takes more than just hard work and smart choices. It's the passion that drives you from within, the endurance to keep going through difficult times, and having a very clear vision of how to succeed. That's what we strive for at CBZ. We're a diversified and innovative listed financial services group in Zimbabwe, with a complete range of activities including banking, short and long-term insurance, asset management, and property investments. CBZ has been a pinnacle for stability in the economic landscape of Zimbabwe, stemming from our deep-rooted values, our excellent customer service delivery, and our corporate vision to strive for excellence as a global competitor. Our continuous investment in research and development will cement our promise to provide customer convenience utilizing state-of-the-art technology. Relationships are at the core of what we do. We understand, however, that strong, long-lasting partnerships are not built overnight. With over 3 decades of wealth management, we have come to understand our clients and their specific investment requirements. Our unique mix of skills ensures that investment opportunities are examined from all perspectives. The balancing rocks of Zimbabwe have weathered the elements for thousands of years and stood the test of time, like majestic reminders of the fine balance of nature. They challenge our perception of what is possible and what endures. Just as CBZ has weathered the economic storms and remained steadfast throughout the turbulence of unsettled economies. Achieving the impossible through resilience and stability, we balance the elements of hard work, dedication and experience, making us your ideal partner for success.
Welcome back, viewers. It's now time for news review. Now, before we get on to review the news, just on the Twitter page of the Ministry of Information and Publicity is a statement issued by the Minister of Local Government, Public Works and National Housing on the water situation in Harare. The statement says by the minister, he says, "I'm extremely concerned over the water situation in Harare. Whilst there is nothing that can be done about the drought which has caused water levels to drop, the problem that caused the current shutdown is the fact that Harare City Council has no revenue to purchase water chemicals." And then, of course, some of the things that he did highlight in there is that the city of Harare has been having more like a hand-to-mouth situation without any stockpile for unseen occasions. Now, to discuss that, I'm joined on set by our very own chief analyst, Mr. Respect Quincy. Respect, good evening and welcome to the show.
It's always my pleasure, Eben. Thank you for having me.
Beautiful. Now, let's start by talking about this water crisis in the capital city of Zimbabwe. We don't have water, and now the minister says, look, there were no reservations whatsoever to actually address the situation at hand. What is your interpretation of the situation here?
I think it might be a combination of economics and politics at play. Without sounding much like a politician, I think at the bottom of this crisis that we are presently having in the country, or in Harare to be specific, we are finding ourselves in a situation where costs are actually escalating on a day-by-day basis. And given that chemicals that are supposed to be acquired for treatment of water, they're actually packed in USD, and the city has been failing to match up those cost increases, where still their 2019 budget, they should be running on, has not yet been approved by the Minister of Finance, which means they haven't effectively received money that they were supposed to utilize from the 2019 budget, and of course the other revised portion of the budget as well. So these factors are obviously militating against their own ability to service the city in the very manner that they should. But I think it broadly speaks to weakening fundamentals in the economy. The reason why the budget was revised in the first place is because costs are actually escalating, and it's across board. It's a number of projects that government had laid out in the 2019 budget. In terms of wanting to fulfill those, road infrastructure and so forth, water, sanitation and so forth and so forth. But all these projects might not necessarily be seen through because of the cost escalations, and to really rely on the other sources of ZIM's, the city council's own revenue, it might not be enough, because they've got other areas which also demands a commitment in terms of capital injection. And of course, some of the petty issues that have been raised are to do with failing to have a proper billing system, and the failure by residents to pay up on time due to the economic excesses and so forth. The city council is putting the blame on government. Government is failing to, yes, it's they're saying the city council is failing to manage its own affairs.
But of concern to me is, of course, now there's going to be, the next thing you're going to hear an announcement, government has, maybe made an allocation of $5 million for the chemicals.
Yeah. That's where we're going. Obviously, that's where we're going. But I think it is quite clear, if this statement is saying that government has not yet allocated its budget that is due to the city council, that effectively means that the city council should be incapacitated, because capitalization or support of its own funding through payments from due clients should be supported by capital injection from government. So obviously they have a budget which has not been approved. So it's quite fair for them to put that blame squarely, especially considering that we've got just 3 months left in the year. They need to push for that funding to come through as well. But now you have to also realize the divergence between those who run the city and those who run the government. The government is run by the ruling party, which is ZANU-PF, and most urban councils are run by the MDC. There might be a deliberate strategy as well to sabotage the city, but anyway, it also feeds into the national narrative about trying develop the economy, trying to find our way through the crisis. So obviously, I don't think it plays well for the ruling party to not play ball in terms of trying to solve this crisis. But I want to believe it's not going to take days before we see the Treasury approving funding for chemicals to meet the crisis.
So much of bootstrapping. Anyways, let's talk about FALCON Gold. The suspension there has been lifted. Earlier on, we know that, of course, this was to do with reporting issues, but we are aware at the same time that FALCON Gold is in need of recapitalization in order to keep their operations, in check. What is your comment with regards to this particular development?
I think it is a welcome development for the broader ZIM. I think over the past 3 to 4 weeks alone, we have seen another company also getting suspended, but that's due to other issues with regards to, when it comes to Hippo, it was suspended a few weeks ago due to a failure to publish their results within the stipulated timeline. So I think that speaks not so well for a market like the ZIM, especially in these times when the economics of the country is getting tougher. It drives away or it scares off foreign investors to know that there's a market which is losing listings on a very frequent basis. Because once a company is suspended, it means trading in those shares is equally suspended. So if you're holding shares, you have to hold on beyond the times that you would have set to want to keep a certain portfolio. So now that the ban is lifted, I think it's a good gesture for the broader ZIM as a market. It's a plus for the market. But for the company specifically, it still has to work hard to try to ensure that its operations get back in position. There's a strong value proposition for Zimbabwean assets over the past 3 years. In 2016 late, FALCON Gold concluded a deal to sell Doni mine to ZIM. It obviously injected a bit of cash flow into their operation, and now they're focusing on the Venice mine, which I think they've really put in all their money on. So I think it's a matter of time. It has got quite an experienced management, and I believe that in time the company might actually redeem its lost pride.
I realize. Well, now then there's also the story to do with the development that Zimbabwe is going to hold a diamond auction where there is 500,000 carats of diamond set to be auctioned. Would you want to shed more light with this is concerned, as well as its significance? So
diamond auctions is not a new system of dealing with gems. It happens all over, be it on our sister countries. It happens in Botswana, and I also know in Zambia they also do such auctioning systems as well. So it's not entirely a new system. Zimbabwe has held similar auctions over the past few years, since between 2010 and 2019. Obviously, the whole operation entails inviting bids, and it's a more transparent way of dealing with diamond. There's always been an impression that diamond funds or diamond sales are not as exclusively transparent in terms of how they're conducted. There are a lot of short deals that goes on in the trade of that commodity, and given that it's an exclusive product, which is exclusive in terms of localization, it's a localized product. So it's a good gesture that government is increasing its transparency levels, but this does not speak to the expanse in terms of the production side. We need to have constant numbers in terms of how the CDC is producing on a month-on-month basis, so as to track the progress that has been made since the mining operations were consolidated in Chiato. To just be given a figure to say this is the amount that will be auctioned does not speak to the amount that has been produced, and therefore you cannot really tell in terms of the growth, in terms of production, and to even judge the whole management in a very proper way. But anyway, for transparency's sake, I think it's a good gesture.
I realize. Well, we're just going to take a break. When we come back, we will have a look at what has taken place on the interbank market system. Don't go anywhere.
Climbing to the top takes more than just hard work and smart choices. It's the passion that drives you from within, the endurance to keep going through difficult times, and having a very clear vision of how to succeed. That's what we strive for at CBZ. We're a diversified and innovative listed financial services group in Zimbabwe with a complete range of activities including banking, short and long-term insurance, asset management, and property investments. CBZ has been a pinnacle for stability in the economic landscape of Zimbabwe, stemming from our deep-rooted values, our excellent customer service delivery, and our corporate vision to strive for excellence as a global competitor. Our continuous investment in research and development will cement our promise to provide customer convenience utilizing state-of-the-art technology. Relationships are at the core of what we do. We understand, however, that strong, long-lasting partnerships are not built overnight. With over 3 decades of wealth management, we have come to understand our clients and their specific investment requirements. Our unique mix of skills ensures that investment opportunities are examined from all perspectives. The balancing rocks of Zimbabwe have weathered the elements for thousands of years and stood the test of time, like majestic reminders of the fine balance of nature. They challenge our perception of what is possible and what endures. Just as CBZ has weathered the economic storms and remained steadfast throughout the turbulence of unsettled economies. Achieving the impossible through resilience and stability, we balance the elements of hard work, dedication, and experience, making us your ideal partner for success. Climbing to the top takes more than just hard work and smart choices. It's the passion that drives you from within, the endurance to keep going through difficult times, and having a very clear vision of how to succeed. That's what we strive for at CBZ. We're a diversified and innovative listed financial services group in Zimbabwe with a complete range of activities including banking, short and long-term insurance, asset management, and property investments. CBZ has been a pinnacle for stability in the economic landscape of Zimbabwe, stemming from our deep-rooted values, our excellent customer service delivery, and our corporate vision to strive for excellence as a global competitor.
Welcome back, viewers. It's now time for Markets Daily, and with me still on set is Chief Analyst Respect Quincy. Now, we've seen much of turbulence where the trade of the Zimbabwean dollar is concerned, particularly on the parallel market. Last week we saw much of turbulence with the parallel market hitting highs of even 25, and now the parallel market has come down to 18. But before we get into that, today the interbank markets, on the interbank market system, the ZIM dollar closed at 14.82 against the US dollar, and there has been a discernible trend where the interbank market system is concerned. We've seen an upward trend. Remember, when this interbank market system was launched in February, we opened at 2.1 as to 2.5, and now we're talking about 14.82. Now, Respect, let's talk about the movements that we have seen where the interbank market system is concerned. Let's discuss the weakening exchange rate from 2.5 right up until 14.82. Your comment?
Sure, I guess I will start with the current movements which we have experienced over the past few weeks. There's been a sharp gravitation of the local currency against the US dollar in the forex markets. I think on average over the past 5 sessions, last week's 5 sessions, it's a decline of over 30% in just under 5 sessions, and that's quite drastic. There's no currency in the world which has plummeted by that margin over that specified short period of time. Cumulatively, between February and now, the local currency has lost over 80%, and it's now nearing 85% to the US dollar since its consummation in February. That's as well on the interbank market. If you're looking at the black market, the ratios are actually worse off. We are sitting today at almost 18 times against, USD against the local currency, and the LM implied rate is actually at a far much worse off position. But if you want to zoom in at the quite interesting trends of the past week, in the past week, that's where we saw that huge 30% decline, which is unprecedented in that you don't expect any normal currency to weaken by a ratio of 30% within just 5 seconds. It's unprecedented. It's something that only can happen when a country is in a war crisis or something of similar magnitude. But this is not the situation that we are in, which means there's something amiss on the economic side. It's quite telling that right at the end of the week, the RBZ on Thursday issued a circular to banks advising that they should close accounts of certain key players in industry, and one of them being Secunda, who has been talked about, the company has been talked about over the past at least 2.5 years. Its founder, who is Tabire, is a very close proxy of the president, and also he has been given some lucrative contracts in certain areas, notably the agricultural sector, which is quite key to Zimbabwe's economic development. And also in the energy side, he has got some unfettered influence and control of the pipeline and certain deals that come with it. So there were payments that were made. It is believed that there were payments that were made into accounts that include the Secunda account, the account of Croco Motors, and the account of several other entities, some of which have got parties that are related to these to the country's executive. So these payments of huge magnitude, you can imagine that a certain contract for command agriculture may sometimes require an allocation of say 500 million, and therefore government has to make a payment at a certain point on that amount. And suppose you have got 100 million that is deposited into your account today, and you're cognizant of the market volatilities and the adverse projections against the US dollar, the immediate move that one would make is to obviously speculate and want to move into the market, lock themselves in some hard currency, and so forth and so forth. So this is exactly what transpired in the past week. Some of these players, including Spartan, a company that is run by a relative, who's one of the directors is a relative of the president, they were, the Arab business intelligence figured out that these guys were actually participating in terms of the parallel market, in that they were moving funds from their accounts into several mobile money accounts of players or dealers in the street, who then uses a chain of a network of other agencies to try to take all the cash that has been in the market. So that's the explanation which we were given, and it's easier to believe that way because I mean it's for the government to come out outrightly and paint the name of a certain company. It's obviously not something that the government would do from the blues.
Yeah,
so
because
it's
earlier on, the Deputy Reserve Governor, Mr. Milambo, is on record for having expressed that, look, there is a cartel that is responsible for the manipulation of the exchange rate. And you look at the trends, you realize that, you know, the parallel market hit a high of 25 just last week, and now it's back to 18, which sort of, you know, confirms what the deputy governor had alluded to earlier, and perhaps, you know, paints now in black and white exactly who these cartel players are, possibly.
Yeah, but I think as an analyst as well, it quite boggles my mind to imagine that 5 players can impact the market in such a serious way. And you can also imagine that if these purported manipulators of the market had already dispensed some of the money into the market by the magnitudes that that they want us to believe, you can just imagine that if you are moving such huge volumes and then suddenly the RBZ says stop at this end, does it mean that the agency would immediately fail to access their funds, which are not coming from the primary accounts but their accounts that they already hold? I think it also is quite suspicious. But broadly speaking, what I believe is that once the government stops official accounts of these players to participate, it does not take away the fact that these accounts still belong to the aggrieved parties or the accused parties. And so it might actually see or put sustained pressure on the interbank, because they are allowed to look for forex, because Krokomota is an importer of cars, and when you're looking at Sakunda, they're also an importer of agri facilities to support command agriculture as a technical partner. So I think broadly you then realize that it does not take away that portion of money having come into the economy already. It's there, it's now part of the money that needs to be satisfied in terms of forex. And some of these monies or some of these quotations and payments, they're grossly overvalued in such a way that somebody is not scared to take a deep shave on their money up to 50% just for them to access their forex, to access forex. So I don't believe that by suspending an account, you've officially dealt with the problem in the house.
It remains
the problem is that there is still money which at some point will be unfreezed. And when it's unfrozen, what it means is it will still demand hard currency at some point.
And chances are we are not likely to be told that the freeze
has
been lifted.
Exactly. And those are very influential guys. They've always been known, but they've failed to rein in on them. And it's not going to take time before they are allowed to access their accounts. And once they access their accounts, maybe they won't be able to directly go into the market through the parallel market, but maybe they'll go through Beirut changes, but then they'll also go through the interbank market. That's why the interbank market never came off in the first place. The interbank market has only maintained Friday's close of 14.4 to 14.7 on Monday, now to 14.8, which shows you that you haven't taken away the kind of pressure that is existing on the interbank market. And when you're looking at the black market, volatility is quite high on that end, because some of those guys, there's fear of being prosecuted because you obviously be dealing in an yes. So I think broadly we still have the kind of pressures that we have been having all this while. It's not like we have really solved the crisis. It really speaks to the dirtiness of our system, the corruptness of our system, which really needs an urgent attention. If anything, it's not anything that should be celebrated. There is a redemption that is required instantly, immediately, in order to address the kind of crisis that we are facing on the economic side. This is a pure state of state capture that cannot go unnoticed.
Oh, thank you, Respect, for the insights. Thank you, viewers, for staying with us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and to visit our informative website, www.EquityAxis.net. From the Equity Axis team and I, Danke and good evening.